I played Star Wars Force Unleashed because I wanted a globe-trotting single-player game where I got to hit people with shiny sticks, and this game didn't disappoint. It's got a good feel to it. It's a seamless adventure where you travel everywhere on foot, apart from between planets. Each planet is a single, massive, sprawling map, with only infrequent squeezy bits which it uses to sneakily load the next area. And you even experience jumping between planets in real time, as you watch your ship take off, enter warp speed, and then arrive at the next location, again after a sneaky bit of loading. Being seamless, however, it means that there's quite a lot of backtracking to your adventure. Don't expect to instantly teleport back to your ship once your mission is over. You then need to get back there on foot. The paths you take often provide new shortcuts to make the process quicker and easier, but even with these, getting back to your ship requires quite a lot of route planning, and then up to about 5 minutes of backtracking, made longer by the groups of enemies that you have to fight along the way. So there are pros and cons to the seamless adventure this game takes you on, which I found myself loving one minute and then hating the next. But now, having finished it, I'm pleased to say that I eventually decided that I loved it for this continuity, which makes getting anywhere alive feel like a triumph, and it fleshes out the environments you visit as being real places to be respected and feared, no matter how great a Jedi you might become, or in my case, not. And it's the same thing with the combat in this game. I know it's overused, but this game borrows heavily from Dark Souls, which, like the adventuring, I frequently jump between loving and hating as I progressed further through this game. When an enemy hurts you, it hurts you a lot. Blocking has a delay before it kicks in, so you'll often get hit by something that you really feel like you should have successfully blocked. And if you dodge an enemy, it doesn't guarantee that you've dodged the enemy, and it likes to put a boss battle just after a lengthy platforming segment, meaning that you have to redo that every time you die as well, which is insult to injury. So this game never made me feel as powerful as I have done in other Star Wars games. But that's fitting, because you play a rubbish Jedi who would get utterly destroyed by most of the characters that you see in the movies. And I like that. It gives me more respect for the movies when I see a lightsaber battle between two of the Masters, knowing that if I was one of them, then I'd have pressed the wrong button and fallen off the platform to my death within 20 seconds of the duel starting. I am perfectly content being a low-level pleb Jedi. All I can say is, with combat in this game, be aware of your surroundings, and if in doubt, be defensive. Unless you're up against a group of enemies, in which case you should panic and swing wildly in the hope that you hit something. It is a tough game. I should have known when I died several times during the tutorial that this wasn't going to be a walk in the park. New enemies will prove punishing until you master their attack patterns. And even now I've beaten the game, a lot of the time I still feel more like a fumbling mess than an elegant Jedi. But it rewards you for learning, and the next checkpoint isn't ever too far away. And reaching one of these restores your health, your supply of medic kits, and it brings every enemy on the level back to life again. And thank goodness falling to your death only results in you teleporting back up to where you fell from again, but with slightly less health. Because the number of times this happened to me, if I was forced to replay from a checkpoint every time, I would have been a very sad boy indeed. Especially what with the sliding and rope jump segments requiring such precise positioning. Also, well done to the game for offering you an optional trip to a high level area so early on in the story. I went there, got wrecked by the first enemy I encountered, then spent a lot of my playthrough fearing the moment I'd have to go there again for real. Which again, I think adds character to the game. I love it when this game punishes me, because it feels like such a triumph when those places eventually become your playground, or even a home away from home. So those are the surprises that made Fallen Order not the game I thought it would be. It feels like a modern Tomb Raider game, but with bigger trees and scarier looking moons. And just like that series, this game also has physics puzzles to break up the action. Although they never reached the complexity of the ones that I've seen in Tomb Raider, I still managed to get stuck on a few for much longer than I should have done. Some of them felt a bit Zelda-y, but then if I try to explain why they did, then it'll spoil stuff, so I'll leave it at that. Believe it or not, I don't like Star Wars movies. The old movies were boring, the prequels had good fights, but boring stories about trade and sand and were filled with cringe CGI, and the new trilogy started promisingly, but then the second movie was terrible, and the third managed to be so convoluted that I actually didn't even finish it. Like, what were they even thinking with it? How did they manage to ruin something this big? Did they switch to a different director every 5 minutes or something? I don't even care anymore. I'm not mad, just disappointed. But that's okay, because this game isn't a movie. This is a Star Wars game, and I've always quite liked these. I don't know why I told you that, but I just thought you should know, because it means that I rate a Star Wars game by a different metric from Star Wars fans. I couldn't care less if Chewbacca's face looked like a welcome mat, while I could care less if the gameplay is bad. For similar reasons, I respect that they chose to mimic the musical scores heard in the movies, but personally I tire of the constant overuse of dramatic themes, interrupted by the occasional childish-sounding plinky-plonky comedy break once. It isn't for me, but it is Star Wars, so I will respect that while I'm in its territory. but like I said, it isn't for me. I don't care for stories in most games, so I certainly don't care about one in a Star Wars game as much as you will. I spent most of my time in the cutscenes comparing texture quality, distracted by how your protagonist's face is a lower res than everybody else's on the ship. But once I finally looked past that, I discovered that most of the characters in this game are quite likeable. But Night Sister Merrin was my favourite by far. Her facial expressions just seemed to be a tier above the rest, and she made every cutscene with her a joy to watch. And not just cause she's really fit. I'm here for the gameplay, and I'm sad to say that there isn't a lot of replayability once you're done with it. By the time you finish the campaign, you've already been forced to replay stuff quite a lot, because throughout the whole game you're constantly learning new abilities which open up more places further back. And there will be times when you're making good progress through a planet, only to be forced to return back to your ship because you haven't unlocked the ability to go up ropes yet, or something equally silly. If you're a perfectionist who likes to raid every room and to 100% beat every segment before moving on, this game is going to continually disappoint you. It's even worse than Spyro 3 for this. But I'm most disappointed by the crates scattered about the world. A crate should be something exciting to unlock, especially ones which take several seconds to open every time. And sure, the yellow ones are great because they permanently up your medikit count, which is literally a lifesaver. It's just a shame that there are so few of these to unlock. All the rest of the crates give you superficial things like new lightsaber handles and ponchos. How disappointing is that? You risk life and limb for some of these things, and their contents never fail to disappoint. Once I had fully kitted my character out in pink stuff, I already had everything I needed. At least you'll gain XP from collecting stuff and from fighting enemies, which can be used to unlock new force, lightsaber, and general abilities. And there are ways of permanently buffing your damage, force and health bars, so you definitely end the game a lot more powerful than when you started, even if you keep telling yourself it's all because you got better at the game. It isn't. As far as PC ports go, they got the difficult bits right, and then epically failed with the basics. The world map is horrible to control and doesn't respond like you'd expect it to. It should behave more like Google Earth or that one in Doom or something. And rather embarrassingly, I couldn't find a way of changing the mouse sensitivity until I discovered a very short and helpful video online that showed me that you can actually scroll down on this page, which I still insist isn't intuitive at all. Once you finish the game, you get to replay it with all your learned abilities, and you get access to stage-based arena fights, which have shown me just how bad I am at this game's combat, and how quickly I get frustrated enough to literally spit all over my really nice HDR screen. It's so annoying to be repeatedly knocked down by the same enemy doing the same trick, or when two enemies complement each other's attacks nicely and there's no way that you can see of dealing damage to one without the other stabbing you in the back. I think it's a bit like Doom Eternal, where if you invest enough time into this game's mechanics, then you'll get good enough to rarely take any damage, and then you'll feel really proud of your abilities. But I'm not at that stage. I finished the game in 20 hours, I'm still terrible at it, and I'm ready to move on. I commend Fallen Order for being tougher than you would expect from a Star Wars game, no offence. It has all been made to a nice high quality, and while the game was actually longer than I expected it to be when I was still playing through it, it does shrink every time you travel across it, and when I think back to its levels now, all I remember are some beautiful landscapes. Because there's so little else to do in these levels once you've tired of killing everything on them. But I can't fault the first playthrough I had of it, and that's the most important one. I enjoyed the journey, and I enjoyed the lessons in pain and suffering that it gave me. And through all the hard work, and quite a lot of backtracking, it's left me with an experience that as a whole feels like a good old single-player adventure. Thanks Star Wars, and thanks to Camaccio for recommending it to me. Check out his YouTube channel here.
Perfect landing.